We're kicking off today with Raw, as during the Bronson-Reed-Braun Strowman brawl, the ring rope broke in a moment that shocked fans in the arena and at home. According to Jeff Clark, an attendee at the show, the ring crew worked on setting up the spot before Reed made his way to the ring, leaving some to speculate the spot was coming. The brawl was physical to say the least, as we previously reported that Reed had suffered a shoulder injury after he and Strowman went through a wall. In an update from Wade Keller, it's revealed that this injury is not a major setback and he'll be fully recovered within a matter of days. It was reported that Bronson was in severe pain due to the impact of his landing, and no major internal injury is reported. The match also saw a fan be launched into Strowman by Reed, and as one would expect, this fan was a planted spot and played by indie wrestler Nessie Hendricks. Hendricks was a security guard for Paul Heyman on Raw earlier this year, but this week saw him get a bit too up close to the action during the show. Over to NXT, as this week's show saw the Gold brand continued forward towards its premiere on the CW, and general manager Ava had some huge announcements in store. During the show, Javon Evans approached Ava backstage with a proposition, one that'd see him featured on the October 8th NXT in St. Louis, the second show after the CW move. Evans will compete on the show, but he won't be facing a fellow NXT superstar, but he'll instead go one-on-one with Randy Orton in the Viper's hometown. On Twitter, Orton wrote, "Hey Javon, want to know who your opponent is? See you in St. Louis on October 8th, kid," confirming his role for the show. It had been previously reported that Orton would be appearing, and now we know that he'll be wrestling in what'll mark only his second match for NXT. His first came on the March 27, 2013 episode of WWE NXT against Damien Sandow, and for young Evans, this will arguably serve as the biggest match of his career thus far. In recent years, WWE main roster talent have been brought to NXT for Triple H and Shawn Michaels to help Gold brand talent, with AJ Styles and Baron Corbin making appearances. The October 8th NXT will be a huge show, as rapper Sexy Red has also been confirmed for St. Louis, and now fans will get the chance to see one of WWE's top stars in action. Do you think Javon is the right guy to face Randy Orton, or should Triple H and Shawn Michaels have gone with somebody else? Let us know down in the comments. After watching Julia's in-ring debut on last week's NXT, CM Punk took to social media to say he had an idea that he wanted to pitch to Ava, a pitch that was accepted by the NXT GM. This resulted in Punk being booked for this week's show and was seen arriving at the show to end the first hour, with his announcement coming after the commercial break. This being CM Punk, fans were chanting his name before he even appeared, and Punk was in a far lighter mood compared to his somber appearance on this week's Raw. Instead, Punk was ready to have fun, as were the NXT crowd, and Punk spoke about how cool it was for him to finally step into the NXT arena for the first time. Punk did admit that while rehabbing his injury, he tried to sneak in and watch NXT, which earned a "We saw you" chant from the crowd, a moment Punk laughed about on the mic. The Raw superstar complimented Lexis King's beard, praised Ethan Page, and teased facing Braun Breaker soon, and gave a shout out to Javon Evans. Punk said he has shirts older than Evans before getting down to business, and said he begged Shawn Michaels to let him be part of NXT's October 1st episode that'll happen in Chicago. NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez interrupted, and after taking a dig at Julia, said that Punk is her favorite wrestler of all time, but "I always did prefer your wife," sparking AJ chants. Perez said she now realizes she should have been a Drew McIntyre fan, and speculated that Punk is just seeking one last moment of glory in NXT before Drew ends Punk's career at Bad Blood. The pair will meet in Hell in a Cell, and on Raw, McIntyre spoke about the match being Punk's final match, a claim that Punk himself refuted on the broadcast. Back on NXT, Punk admired Perez for her overconfidence, noting that he once had a chip on his shoulder as big as Roxanne herself, and that chip made him the best in the world. Punk warned Roxanne that while she may be the best woman in WWE, she'll need her A-game in Chicago when she faces Julia, who then made her way to the ring. Julia declared that the countdown has begun with just 2 weeks left until their showdown, but when she turned to leave, Perez tried to hit her with her title, but was stopped by CM Punk. We'll have to see how things pan out in Chicago, but CM Punk will certainly be involved, adding another layer to what many are already predicting will be the match of the night. As for this segment, it went too long for the fans, who were a little uncertain on how to react, but Punk is always a confident talker and supported Perez, who cut one of her better promos. While Julia didn't say much, she sounded strong on the mic, especially for someone still learning English, and Perez selling her fear of the Japanese sensation keeps helping. The main problem was that nothing truly happened in this segment, as Punk promised to make an announcement but ultimately just stood there as Perez and Julia nearly got into it early. This would play out later when Punk showed he was far more interested in the NXT Championship match than the NXT Women's Championship bout. What's your take on CM Punk's appearance on NXT this week? Do you think that he improves every show he's on? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Perez's declaration that she should have been a Drew McIntyre fan didn't go unnoticed by the Scottish Warrior, who responded on Twitter with a jab at CM Punk. McIntyre said that he's very proud of Perez for her success, but stopped short of calling the prodigy his wrestling daughter, adding that only freaks do that. Punk has referred to Perez as his wrestling daughter in the past, a line McIntyre clearly finds odd, as the mind games between these two is continuing on the road to bad blood. The rivalry of Wes Lee and his former Rascals cohorts Zachary, Wentz, and Trey Miguel has taken center stage in NXT in recent weeks, even though the NXT tag team weren't around last week. Wentz and Miguel were supposed to challenge Fraxium for the NXT tag titles last week, but before the show, Ava announced that they'd been replaced by the Street Profits. No reason was given to the fans, but on this week's show, Zachary Wentz shared why they missed the show and asked the production truck to play some footage. The footage showed Trey Miguel approaching his car in a parking lot, but as he sat inside his car and closed the door, Lee came out of nowhere and assaulted his former friend. Lee cost Miguel and Wentz a golden opportunity, and Wentz is now laser focused on their upcoming street fight on the October 1st episode of WWE NXT on the CW network. What's your thoughts on Zachary Wentz showing footage of Wes Lee attacking Trey Miguel last week? Who do you think will win this street fight? Sound off in the comments. More from NXT as Ava introduced Trick Williams and Ethan Page for their NXT title match contract signing, but like so many before it, this contract signing quickly fell apart. Williams said that the all-ego talent had stolen the NXT championship, and Page took offense and sent Trick through a table with the ego's edge. No one signed the contract as Trick was laid out and Page walked out, and a second attempt at a contract signing later in the show would prove successful. This second segment saw Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers play enforcer, and he brought some of his fellow Pacers to the show that were booed by the Orlando crowd. After the deal was signed, CM Punk's music hit, and he had an announcement to make, and unlike his previous segment, he actually made the announcement he had planned. Punk said that given the magnitude of the match, which will take place on NXT's CW premiere in Chicago, he will serve as the special guest referee of the bout. The pacing of this segment took up more time than needed, but the goal was achieved, as Page vs. Trick was established as the biggest match NXT could possibly deliver for the CW premiere. It'll be up to Trick and Page to make up for their lackluster outing at Battleground and deliver in front of the passionate Chicago crowd. It'll also be interesting to see how they fare with CM Punk in the ring, as while the crowd will be clearly supporting Punk, it'll be up to Trick and Page to keep the spotlight off of the referee. Also, we should mention that Ava has 2 assistants and still needed Halliburton to be the enforcer for this contract signing, as something needs to change in NXT's authority structure. In June, Becky Lynch's contract with WWE expired and she didn't re-sign, and ever since, fans have been curious as to what the future holds for her. This week, WRKD Wrestling gave an update, as when a Twitter account pointed out that it's been over 100 days since Lynch last appeared for WWE, WRKD said it's just a matter of time before she's back. After her exit, it was reported that WWE are confident she'll return when the time is right, but it remains to be seen when the man will come around again. During a December 2023 SmackDown, Charlotte Flair suffered a significant injury during a match with Asuka, tearing her ACL, MCL, and meniscus in the process. Flair has been recovering ever since then, and with WWE eagerly awaiting for her return, there is already a plan in place for the comeback of the Queen. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, though, Charlotte is yet to be cleared for action, despite ongoing backstage discussions about how she'll be brought back. Fightful said that WWE is considering integrating Flair into the ongoing storyline featuring Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton, which would put Flair back in the title picture. Since winning Queen of the Ring, Jax has adopted the Queen moniker, and this title, alongside her championship belt, would make Nia a natural rival for Charlotte. Looking further ahead, WWE reportedly has even bigger plans for Flair, as there are rumblings that she's been penciled in for a WrestleMania match with Tiffany Stratton. Given Stratton's admiration for Flair and her rapid rise in WWE, a showdown between the two would be a dream match for fans and a clash of two different eras of women in the company. If all goes according to plan, Flair's eventual return to WWE will deliver some high-stakes rivalries, but as we said, this all hinges on her being cleared for action first. We'll have to see how much longer we have to wait, but which potential feud do you think is right for Flair at this stage in her career? Sound off in the comments. WWE Raw this week had memorable matches throughout the night, and one of the best parts of the show for fans was undoubtedly Joe Tessitore, who was truly passionate in his commentary, most notably for Io Sky and Bianca Belair's one-on-one match. According to PW Insider, there was significant internal praise for Joe Tessitore's commentary on this week's episode of Raw. What's your view on Joe Tessitore's performance on Monday Night Raw so far? Do you believe that he will become a major player eventually? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Seth Rollins, who recently returned from a knee injury, faced another setback during the August 5th episode of WWE Raw. He was viciously attacked by Bronson Reed, and since then, he's been absent from in-ring action. Despite his ongoing absence, Rollins is now being advertised for an upcoming WWE event, leading many to believe he will return soon enough. Saturday night's main event is making a major comeback. The event will be taking place on December 14th at Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York at 8 p.m. Eastern on NBC. WWE is advertising several top superstars for the event, which is why they already have a poster for the show. The poster includes Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, and, interestingly enough, Seth Rollins. Therefore, fans can assume Rollins could make his in-ring return during the show. On NXT, Tatum, Paxley, and Lyra Valkyria faced Wendy, Choo, and TNA's Rosemary, and Paxley took quite the beating, but was able to get the hot tag to Lyra, who got the win with a diving leg drop. Rosemary, who did the heavy lifting for her team, as she set up the beatdown and the crowd-pleasing comeback. Valkyria and Paxley have always had chemistry, and WWE would be smart to keep booking them together after their abrupt split earlier this year. While Lyra should remain a fixture on Raw first and foremost, she has more story left to tell in NXT, and with her main roster run in something of a lull right now, NXT would be a smart move. Choo has lost some steam as of late, as she'll need to make some kind of change to come off menacing again, which may unfortunately come at the expense of Rosemary. The TNA Knockout has yet to play any role other than veteran enabler in NXT, and her next role could see her be fodder for Choo if WWE decide to rebuild her heel character. After losing to Oba Femi last week, TNA's Hammerstone was confronted by Tony D'Angelo, who demanded he face the North American champion again, but Hammerstone refused. This led to the two of them agreeing to a match, and the Don had trouble with the power and force of Hammerstone, clearly flashing back to his struggles with Femi. In the end, D'Angelo walked out on the match, allowing a countout, and while this wasn't much of a match, the story of the Don losing his confidence is interesting. In Hammerstone, Tony saw a similar power to Femi and simply walked out rather than take another defeat, and it was an intriguing setup for an inevitable Femi-D'Angelo rematch. If the Don can find his confidence again, he can challenge the ruler. Until that time, he may not compete at all, a fact the Nigerian powerhouse will relish in. Backstage, Femi watched what was happening and said that D'Angelo is broken, and that certainly appears to be the case at this point in time for the Don. It was nice to see a TNA star pick up a victory, even if it was tainted by the countout, and NXT has shown confidence in Hammerstone that could lead to more appearances. More from NXT as Eddie Thorpe defeated Ashante Adonis in a match that saw obvious chemistry between the two, so we hope that this isn't the last we see of these two in the ring. Speaking of chemistry, Adonis gave a rose to a woman in the crowd and blew her a kiss before the finish of the match, and we'll have to see if that leads to much for the Hit Row alum. Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander defeated Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne of the No Quarter Catch crew in the strongest match of the night between four talented names. That's why it's a shame that it feels like the crew can't build credibility as a unit, as though they've seen individual success, they seem incapable of stringing two straight wins together. Brooks Jensen mocked and belittled Dion Lennox, who only got more motivated with each jab, but in the end, a distraction from Shawn Spears saw Jensen hit the implant DDT for the win. WWE showed a video of A-Town Down Under challenging Fraxium to an NXT Tag Title match, and this was to set up a Grayson Waller effect that'll take place next week. Lola Vice defeated Jacy Jayne with a spinning back fist, despite Fallon Henley's attempted distraction, but Fatal Influence struck after the match until Jada Parker laid them out. Vice and Parker almost came to blows afterwards, but the real story here is how Fatal Influence have lost all momentum so quickly into their rebrand as a team. Once again, the three members of the faction were no match to one woman slightly higher on the totem pole, and while Vice and Parker teased an alliance, they hardly need one. This was the last match of the night and barely got moving before Vice knocked Jayne out, and while Henley remains the most protected member of the stable, she needs a big win soon. In recent years, the topic of discipline in AEW has repeatedly come up as fans have shared their 2 cents on what's to be done with talent who cause trouble. After all, many fans felt that AEW was too lenient on CM Punk by essentially rewarding him with his own show in Collision in 2023, though AEW did eventually fire Punk shortly after. During an interview with Huge Pop, Mark Henry shared some of his frustrations with his AEW tenure, which wasn't what he initially thought it was going to be. Henry explained that he joined to gain executive experience and help the company grow, but soon realized that his role wasn't about making contributions backstage. He explained, "Tightening the screws requires you to be able to break your toolkit out. So there was a point when I realized that I wasn't there to tighten the screws. I was there for name recognition and visibility, and that's a horrible place to feel if you're a creative. I don't want to come across, I'm not whining and I'm not complaining, I'm stating the facts, but right now, everybody gonna be like, nah, Mark Henry just mad and bitter. I'm not mad and bitter." Henry also addressed the issues in the company with discipline, which he argues didn't take place while he was under contract with the promotion. "I went there because I wanted to get experience being an executive, and I wanted to help that company flourish and help those people that were over there be better than they were. I was working for those high fives from guys and girls coming back. And then there's some bad apples, and the bad apples have to be disciplined. Oh, they're disciplining people now, but nobody was getting suspended or disciplined when I was there. I don't remember that." Henry also confirmed that AEW had no plans for him to wrestle during his time with the company, and reiterated that he had mixed feelings about his time with AEW. Although things didn't go as expected, his intentions were always focused on helping AEW succeed, but it seems that it just wasn't meant to be for the world's strongest man.